All right, let's see. Good afternoon, everyone. I call to order the budget meeting of the Town Commission on August 1st, 2022 at 2 p.m. Tracy, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Vice Mayor DeHassa. Present. Mayor Hurlbert.
Here.
Commissioner Cog.
Here.
Commissioner Bishola.
Here.
And let the record show that Commissioner Pugh is absent with notice.
Thank you. Will everybody rise and join me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to open the floor to public comment on any item not listed on this agenda. All right, I will close the floor. All right, our action items. We're going to be discussing the fiscal year 23 budget. Town Manager Stevens, will you please present version 3 of our budget?
Yes, I'll be happy to, but before I do that, I just want to introduce our new town clerk, Kelly Avery, to everyone. This is Kelly. Welcome to Ocean Ridge, Kelly.
Welcome, Kelly.
Okay, I present to you version 3 of the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. The overall projected budget expenditures of $10,062,280 are calculated at a mill rate of 5.50, which is the same mill rate as last year, assuming a 97.5% collection rate for ad valorem taxes and utilization of reserves in the amount of $8,698 to balance the budget. Please keep in mind that there are several items in the budget that will need to be adjusted as rates are received, such as insurance and retirement rates. We did receive our dental, vision, AD&D, and all of those insurances, and those are reflected in this current budget that I presented to you. Health insurance rates were received right after this budget was printed. Those came in at 5.38%, and we had budgeted a 10% increase, so that's going to decrease your budget just slightly. We are still waiting for insurance rates for our general liability and our workers' comp insurance, so those will affect the budget as well, potentially. I gave you a list of changes in the budget since version 2. We decrease the expenditure line item in general government for the lobbyists from $40,000 to $20,000. We added $250,000 to the capital budget for the drainage project on Harbor Drive North. We added $50,584 to general government for the upgrade of the town's finance software. Added $150,000 to the capital budget for the replacement of town hall generator. Increase the salary of the Public Works 1 position to $62,000 because the employee that we're hiring is an electrician, and that will reduce our potential costs for a hired electrician to come in. We added $10,000 for signage in reference to the Old Ocean Boulevard pedestrian safety program and updated insurance lines. We decreased the contingency line item by $434,454. And updated the reserve line item. $8,698 is now needed from reserves to balance the budget. Also, salary surveys were conducted, and I presented those to you all. And we do recommend adopting the proposed salary range adjustments and also considering the addition of a receptionist / administrative assistant position to town hall to alleviate the pressure on current staff. And in talking about that particular item, I just want to remind you all that we did have some money. It was about $200,000 that went into the reserves from last year, and that is earmarked for building department. So if you hired on this position, you could take that money out of reserves and spend it for building, because really the receptionist / administrative assistant will be for the building department because we're so busy in that area. So,
That would be a part-time or
part-time.
What are the salary ranges for a part-time position?
Okay. Okay, you have in your packet. Okay, that would be administrative assistant, range 1, so 42.5 is the annual salary. So if it's a part-time, it would be based on that. So it would be an hourly based on 42.5 annual, but it would be a lot less than that if it's part-time.
So can you guesstimate?
Yep, hold on.
You just say what you expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, about $20 an hour.
21.
About $20 an hour, and then you would have to pay the associated FRS costs and, your workers' comp, general liability.
So how many hours?
Do we have that on a part-time? That we have to do?
FRS,
Yeah.
yes, even for part-time, yes. You do not pay health insurance and things like that, but you do have to do FRS.
So $20 an hour times, what, a week?
If we had the person come in from 9 to 3 and work 6 hours, Monday through Friday, we'd have,
Wouldn't that come too close to
Yeah,
a
it sounds-
full-time position, because then I mean, there's a cutoff, at one point it becomes a full-time.
32 hours.
32.
32, mm-hmm.
Why don't we
You
just,
wanna be under 32.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
So Chief just suggested
We could do 5
25.
hours.
I think that's a good
We
suggestion.
could do
Mhm.
5 hours a
Absolutely.
day, at 25 hours a week.
Especially in the morning, that'll take a big load off.
Mhm.
So it's 500 a week, and what's, pension on that?
It's-
The
9%?
FRS,
10%.
So $50, okay.
Ish, yeah.
So what was the reserve amount, for,
You
built up
had-
last year for building?
You had around 200,000 go back into reserves for building, and you have to
Specifically.
use that on building
Right.
department. It's not
Right.
something you can just float into your regular general reserves, and if you don't use it, after a certain amount of years, you do lose it.
good direction.
And you can terminate a part-timer with little pain?
You can always, in your budget process, vote to not fund that position anymore if
Okay.
it's not.
For
The
the
reason I
following
bring
year.
that up is not, I should probably turn this. Is not, to say we're gonna get rid of them, but
Absolutely.
if anyone's been following the housing news, everything's slowing down pretty dramatically, pretty quickly. So this need for this position could evaporate in 12 months.
Right. Yeah, that's up to the commission if you wanted to, fund it for this year and then say next year you didn't wanna fund it anymore. You would let management know and then just not fund that position.
So the position would be mostly for the building department? Or
Almost all for the
all
building
for the
department.
building
Right.
department.
Mhm.
And with that, we can fund it from the building department?
Yes, you can.
Overflow?
Correct.
Yep.
With the
Which is
risk,
basically it's a net zero almost, because we can't use it for anything else and we have so much.
and it eliminates the risk of losing the money.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
Logistically, how is that gonna work in the front office?
We have yet to determine that.
Tight.
We have yet to determine that.
We make it work.
We do have a conference room that could be converted into office space if we need it. That's an option.
We don't have any space over at the police department? There's no open offices?
No,
Can we
not
get a quote
currently.
for a second story?
You laugh, but we
I know.
have talked about putting a second story onto the garage area at some point
Getting a
for an
container in the
EOC.
back, that's all we can pay for.
Yeah. Emergency Operations Center could be housed there. The building department may be able to be housed there.
All right. So, let's slide that in
Future
there.
planning.
Right, right. Do we need to say we're going to add that to our budget?
Yeah, if
At
you
this
want to
moment.
consent to it, then
All right,
we
so-
would need to know now before we go into public
Martin, you have some
hearings.
input there?
No, it's perfectly fine. It's something we need to do.
Steve?
Yeah, it's 28,600, including pension.
Good?
Yeah.
Christine?
I'm in total agreement. I'm just hoping that we're gonna dovetail this with talking about salary ranges for other things.
Yes, we have to go into that next.
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay.
next. Okay, so this part on its own, part-time, front help, we'll make space, we'll find a
Okay,
place.
so what you're gonna see in your next version of the budget then, you'll see an added part-time position for the building department. You'll see that in your HR salary, calculations. You will also see in your, in this line right here, and, yeah, like, I'm tall enough to show you that.
Yeah.
The reserve line that is 8698, you will see that increase because we're gonna take that money out of
But
reserves,
it'll
out
be
of the
offset.
building reserves.
Right.
Yep, you'll see that there because you are funding that out of the building reserves. I'll put another line there so I can show you what the balancing line reserves is for the regular budget, and then I'll show you what we're taking out of the building reserve.
You know what also might be helpful, because I know that we have a couple of different reserve types. We've got a beautification, and
Mhm.
maybe just kind of delineate that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
separate them
That would
so
be
we see what
great.
we've got.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a consensus there to add that in for the next budget, part-time, front office, receptionist? What
What-
shall we call this?
Yeah, we're gonna call it an administrative assistant.
Administrative assistant.
Mhm.
All right, we're all in.
And when would we have to wait until the budget cycle is complete to hire this person?
Well, right now you're in August, so by the time we get somebody hired on, I can imagine it's going to be,
October
October 1st anyway.
Okay.
By the time we get the ads ready, we get resumes in and everything.
All right. I think we're in all agreement.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good.
All right, our next item that we're going to discuss
Salary
is
ranges.
going to be the salary ranges. Would you
Mhm.
fill us in on the homework that you've done here and where we started and where we are?
Yep, I handed you all salary survey information, and you do have information in front of you that shows a kind of side-by-side view. Mayor DeHasseth was kind enough to get this ready for me, because I was busy doing other things. And she developed this off of the information that I handed to you all during your one-on-one staff meetings. So you can see really a side-by-side comparison of Town of Ocean Ridge to Gulfstream, Manalapan, Juno Beach, Lake Clark Shores, and Highland Beach. And most of those towns are what you were looking for a comparison. It's the Barrier Island community, small communities to compare to.
Similar, it's actually apples to
Similarly
apples here.
situated, yeah, apples to apples. So you can look at that information, and it kind of just tells you a little bit of a story about where we're at for each position.
Many of these positions have just different titles. what we're
Yeah, they
looking for,
do,
correct, right?
and also, if you noticed, for most of the comparisons that we did, those towns do not have a full-time building department, they do contracted building, so as you can see with us, it's kind of different because our staff has different duties than the staff in the other towns.
Right, there's
So-
some of these towns have a whole HR department, some
Yeah.
have a total separate financial. So, yeah, there's a lot of differences, but we're basically looking at population and, budget and seeing what we need here, correct?
Yeah.
Plus, what I tried to pull out was, and this was across the board, what are proposed increases, not only from our town, which is a flat merit-based, there was a lot of towns that are moving from merit to merit plus COLA, because COLA is dramatic this year, so.
Correct.
It is really kind of very hard to compare apples to apples completely, but I think this is close enough.
This is very helpful. And the suggestion originally that we discussed, where we wanted the more data from, the suggestion itself was would you explain how we're going to work that with how we make the jump and how it fits into the future?
So it's-
When we talked originally about looking to increase the front staff,
Yes.
how we were going to make it, we were almost comparing it to what happened at the dispatch, or they're similar, explain that to us one more time.
Right, so with the police officers, obviously, we took care of them under the PBA contract. So that's most of our staffing. So they were taking care of salary adjustments through that. And then there was a market adjustment for the dispatch unit, 7,500 each. And then we didn't do any type of market adjustment for any of our other staff, which includes the police chief and the lieutenant, because they're not covered under the PBA. So those were the two left in the police department. And then we had the entire building department and admin staff that we did not adjust for market. And as Vice Mayor DeHaseth just said, we really need some sort of market adjustment this year because the inflation is so high.
Right. Which will then move us forward on a more consistent playing level for the future.
Right.
And
That's what I wanted to get.
in our market adjustments usually done as a bonus or a lump sum, or how is
No.
that done?
No, it's done through salary, so you
No.
will give it, you can't call it a bonus at all because that's
Okay.
illegal.
Right, but there's another word you can use.
Longevity?
We've done it before, stipend or something.
A
and
stipend.
Stipend?
They
Yeah.
get it for that year. In other words, inflation now is 10%, let's say, right? It's not gonna continue 10, hopefully, you know, for the next 2 years. So what, if we do a salary increase, that's built in
It is built in, yeah.
forever.
Correct.
So to Christine's point, in the past, what we've done is we've tried to stipend additional money, so the base goes up to 5%, but doesn't go up 8%.
Well, you did that, during COVID. You gave some sort of stipend
Right.
for that, but this is different. This is, you've given almost your entire police force a market adjustment in salary, and you also did the same thing for your dispatchers, but you didn't do it for the rest of the staff.
So in the police department, there's only 2 individuals?
Left that we need to adjust,
Right.
yes, the police chief and the lieutenant. And then you have your building official, building inspector, public works, admin.
So, I'm a little confused, because this chart has down at 5%. Are you saying 5+? Is that what you're driving at, Tracy?
So we're talking about two different things, so, the proposed salary ranges, that is for minimum and maximum salary. So this is the chart that shows you what you're gonna hire a new employee at, and then the maximum salary gives you your top out rate. So those need to be adjusted. But then the separate item that we're talking about is to give the market adjustment to the employees that did not receive it yet.
So we're talking two different situations
So
here,
basi-
correct?
Yes.
So this comes basically to the point of what we had going on with Carla, where, you know, she had a salary, and then when she handed in her resignation, now all of a sudden a new hire would have more,
Right,
even though,
than what she had, yep.
Right.
right, so we
Right.
need to make sure that we're on par, so we don't have
Competitive.
employee turnover.
Right.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, I've said this to you many times, your employees are your biggest asset here in Ocean
Absolutely.
Ridge, and you don't want to, you know, have a mass exodus of staff. They really work hard for you all and the residents, and.
But we need to stay competitive with
Yeah,
everybody else
absolutely
because,
need to, because they will end up
Yeah.
going somewhere that's gonna give them more.
of course.
Yep. And a
Okay,
lot
so-
of the towns, and it doesn't show you on these, charts, a lot of the towns give benefits for health insurance for dependents. Ocean Ridge does
Does
not.
not.
So
So
that's another
that's another
consideration.
benefit that's actually monetary.
Yes.
All
So,
right.
since
Go
they're
ahead.
two separate, although intertwined issues, can we take them one by one?
Probably
You
makes-
should,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
you should, absolutely.
Not, it gets really confusing.
Yeah, complicated. All right, so where shall we begin? With the adjustment
Sure.
for,
I would recommend that you do the same thing you did for your dispatchers and give the 7,500
Across the
across
board.
the board. That way, it's a fair and equitable amount for all employees.
and how many employees are we talking about?
You're talking about your chief,
Two
your
PD.
lieutenant, your public works supervisor, your town clerk, treasurer, building clerk, deputy clerk,
Right,
building official, and building inspector, so 9.
And you wanna go 75 I mean, there's wide ranges of disparity in pay. You know, you have probably at 50,000, 60,000, one employee, and you have another employee at 120,000 making double the salary.
Mhm.
I don't see where that is equitable.
Well, does the 75, you've looked at this before.
It's not, but that's what you did for your dispatchers, so that's why
I know,
I'm saying.
but the dispatchers are all four on basically more or less the same salary, that they have the same job.
Oh, no, they're not.
Well, they have, you know, differences in years and being on
Yeah.
the job and all of that.
Your
but-
dispatch manager is very
Should
much
be
higher
higher.
salary
I know.
and,
But the dispatch
don't-
was woefully underpaid. So the
Right.
question, we can't apply apples to oranges. Question number one. Question number two, this inspector's part-time.
Mhm.
So why would we give this person $7,500 increase?
because it's an employee of the town.
Yeah, see, I'm having
You,
issues there.
as far as a part-time person, you could talk about something different for a part-time person.
Right, so that's an option. Also, with the 75, have we looked at this, how far that 75 brings on these salary surveys towards the max? You know what I'm saying, which each salary
Well,
is
that-
different, so.
Okay, so that's why I
right.
did this,
So-
so, and I left a couple extra
Right, so we need to do a little
columns,
math
so.
there.
So, Commissioner Cos, you always have your calculator out, you wanna do that for us?
Well, what am I calculating? Adding 7,500 to each of them? That's.
Right, and then
we
you
haven't-
add
It shows what our actual salaries are now.
Right, and then we can
Right,
compare that to.
So I'm looking at 2023 OR if 5%, right?
Yes, I would
Okay.
use that one.
Right, so we're at 139. I'm not a fan of $7,500 across the board. It's sloppy. In other words,
Okay, well, let's look at some options here.
Yeah.
Let's start with the, if we just want to go down the line, we can use Christine's paperwork here. So let's look at the deputy town clerk. What are we looking at? 50. Let's look at the salary surveys, which are, what do we got? Proposed salary survey, well, that changes everything, but that takes you, no, that wouldn't take her to the max for sure. And that's the old salary we'd be looking at if we were going to bump up that. So where does that take us? Have your calculator here?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
I got
146, 625.
Excuse me, Christine?
If you add 7,500 to the 2023, if everybody got the 5%, which is probably the baseline that we should be
Yep.
using, it would take the town manager to 146, 625. So that does not come near to the max of 195 or 185, which is current.
Okay, that's the question I want to know, is where do we go, how do we
So-
compare
so-
with the maxes?
So let's make that comparison, and then let's make the comparison, how does the 146, 625 compare to like towns, right?
Right,
I think you're doing town manager math, not town
Well, let's-
clerk math.
Yeah.
Can we back this up for a second, please?
what do you got?
So we're going from 22 to 23. There's a 5% built in.
Mhm.
Right, our current
If,
rate of inflation is 10%. Let's just agree on a number, say it is 10%. If our current rate of inflation is 10%, why are we going 5%? We should be going 10% on everybody for 23 in order to offset inflation, correct? And then are we giving an additional incentive, adjustment, whatever you wanna call it, in addition to that? But why are we discussing 5% just because we have 5% somewhere written down when our current inflation rate is 10%?
is that
And
the
if we're
second part
doing
of the
year
question?
to
though?
year,
Yeah,
this
and-
year is 10%, if next year is 3%, maybe we shouldn't be discussing 5%, we should be discussing 3% next year.
But is that the second
So-
half of the issue?
So right now, in your budget is a built-in number of a 5% increase, and that's just the merit. Okay.
That's what I'm saying,
So
it's
that's already
written
built in the
somewhere
budget.
down.
That's
Yeah,
already in
and-
the budget.
But that can
Good.
be adjusted.
And that needs to be adjusted currently in order to make sure that our employees are not coming out of their pocket for working for us versus the year before.
Mm-hmm. So
Which
you're
means
saying-
the minimum increase that we have to give our employees is the increase based on current inflation. And if the current inflation is 10%, their salary has to increase at a minimum of 10%.
So you're
When-
talking
when you-
about setting the rate instead of 5%, you're
set
talking
it at
about
10%,
10%.
and now we can
no
talk,
bonus?
and then instead of talking 7,500, I think we need to be talking percentages, because if a town manager, Mrs. Town Manager is making, 139, and then we're upping that by the 7,500, now we're at 146, we're right there somewhere at 10%, but if somebody that's making 50, 60,000, and then we're upping 75, all of a sudden they're getting a pay increase of, whatever, 15, 20%.
That would be taking the two issues and
That's
making it
where
into
my
one.
issue
Right.
is.
Which actually, Martin, that's a good idea, because that's taking the two issues of the step and then talking
Right.
about the merit raise, turning it into one, just giving a good-sized one that includes both.
The first increase for me, this 5% increase should be a rate of inflation increase. Boom, and then from now, we can discuss, okay, should we
If there's
increase
an
it by another 2%, by another 3%? Where normally we were, our normal rate of inflation is 3% in this country, has been over decades. 2%, 3%, we're always bouncing back and forth on that. We're giving 5%, so we're giving basically between 2 and 3% increase to the rate of inflation. So rate of inflation plus 2% is our normal rate of pay increase for salaries. So if this year is 10%, we should be discussing maybe bumping our 22 up by 12%.
Well, I get where you're going here, but what I do see that seems to make a little bit of sense to me is the fact of if we forgot about the two situations, looked at giving the 10% to keep up with inflation, we add 10% onto what the actual salary is now, that would be approximately what we were looking at the bump plus 2%. So it kind of evens itself out,
Yeah,
right?
Would be
And it's
simple.
it's all done in one process.
Except 2 years from now, when everything is cheaper.
I doubt that that's gonna happen. But,
Well,
but,
you-
but
you
I
see
tell
what
you
I'm
Have
this,
to make it, yeah.
So
Well,
if you do the stipend, you're taking care of this particular inflation problem without causing a 10% times some serious money here.
you are, and
Forever.
by the way, I went to an economic summit,
We would have
with
to
the
have negative
FGOA,
inflation.
Right.
a couple of months ago, and the economist said that he does not expect prices to go back down anytime soon.
there would be a negative inflation. We would literally go negative in the inflation if that is the case. And this is, my biggest thing is with this, out of the blue, we're saying 5% each year. The 5% the 5% was probably a decent number when we were having regular inflation rates.
Right.
Now that everything is just up in the air, we're going up right now, and we will probably go stagnant a year from now, and then we will have hopefully a zero inflation for a couple of years. If that is the case, then having a 5% increase at that time would be overpaying. So my biggest issue is the 5% itself is a number that is arbitrary. It had been used properly when we were always at the same pace, but given that we're off the pace at this year and probably the next few years, we should rethink doing a 5% increase and basing it on inflation plus.
I understand.
2%.
Yeah. No, I understand. Steve, you were saying?
And that will, and if it goes negative, we might have to talk about a pay cut
Adjust.
And
too.
if you do it that way, you'll
If
be
that-
doing it the same as what a lot of other municipalities are doing. I'm looking at a sheet right now. Juno Beach is giving up to 7%. Lake Park is
Right, I saw
giving 9%. Town of Palm Beach is giving anywhere between 9 and 15% next year. 8% for Key Biscayne. There's just a lot of different municipalities that are giving way more because of inflation this coming year.
Oh, you have to.
Okay, so Martin's suggestion is bundle, basically.
No, it's a good
Yes,
suggestion.
Yeah, I think it's a simpler suggestion. It doesn't mean we're tied to 10% every year, just because that was.
Correct.
Right,
It would
and
just
that's
be
the
for
point
this
we-
one year.
Right.
And we shouldn't be tied to 5% every year either.
Which-
No,
I know
that's-
we are under
you
the
always-
PVC contract,
PBA.
PBA contract.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, you discuss it every budget season,
Right.
what your percentages are gonna be.
All right, Steve. what you got?
So it's intriguing.
It is.
It sounds steep, but I think we would have to like literally write in some particular file that we've done this, because the point is, when inflation returns to 2%,
Bring it down.
right, but, so you can't then subtract salary, that's the problem. And I understand where you're getting at, Martin, and it does catch the staff up to inflation. We should actually use the 9.1%. Catches up to inflation, but it's still, the rest of the town is also dealing with inflation. So it's difficult. I understand exactly what you're saying. Don't know if I'm totally on board with it. It's logical. And I'm surprised I'm saying that.
About me?
Christine?
I always like to look at the numbers attached with the theory. So I'll give you 3 examples. I'll give you the town manager, the treasurer, and the building official. So the town manager, if we do the 5% increase plus the 7,500, it would give you a total of 146,625. If we just do a straight 10% based on the 132,500 actual, it would be 145,750. So it would be a little bit less. Deputy town clerk, if we did the 5% plus the 7,500, it'd be 58,425. If we did just the straight 10%, it would be 53,350. So there seems to be a delta somewhere between about 100,000. You're starting to move backwards in taking the 10% versus the 5 plus the 7,500, which mathematically makes sense. And last, for instance, the building clerk, if we did the 5% increase on what is actual and 7,500, it'd be 110,819. If we did the straight 10%, it would be 108,238. So, I mean, we're really kind of splitting hairs.
Right.
Splitting hairs here. But my concern is, it's very hard to go backwards.
Right.
And once somebody is used, we used to have a range of 2 to 4%. Then it turned to 3 to 5%. And I can tell you, we can count on one hand the number of employees that actually got anything less than 5%. Part of that was keeping up with the fact that we didn't already have a good base salary.
Right.
But, I just don't wanna set a precedent that we can't continue. And to Steve's point, it would be lovely to think that everybody in the town made 10% increase on their portfolio or anything else, because it's our taxes at the end of the day that finance the staffing. So, I think we're making some assumptions, not that they're wrong or right, but I just want everybody to think about all of the different components of it.
So how about this? We're sticking to the 5% and we're doing a stipend. Instead of making it a flat rate of 75 to everybody, make it a 5% stipend based on salary.
I think
I
that
mean,
makes
we're
more
not,
sense.
we're not bound by anything saying, here's a nut bonus, because we can't use bonus, of 75. We can just say, okay, you get an additional 5% inflation surplus something or another. We
So
call it
5
something
and 5.
funny. 5 and 5.
And the second 5 is not permanent.
That way we're
Right,
not
it's not
locking
permanent.
ourselves
So-
down.
and
Let
with
me
us.
just tell you what's gonna happen if you do it that way. If you do it that way, and then all of these other towns give these giant raises this year, then you're gonna be way below market,
I
and your
don't think we
employees
would
can go
be.
other places
I
that
then
would
we're
don't think,
backwards.
hire.
based,
Start.
based on what you just said, they were giving 10%, 9%,
salary.
8%. Well, we're giving 10%. We're
You'll
giving
give-
5 plus 5.
But if you're saying you're giving 5 and then a stipend, their rate is not there anymore
All right.
next year, but the
So ho-
town
so hold
of
on.
Palm Beach
So-
is.
hold on. But we're discussing two different things. We're discussing a minimum base rate, and we're discussing a increase for this particular year, fiscal year 23. So we're discussing two different things, and we try to keep them separate
No,
from
what
each
I'm
other.
telling
We're
you
trying to
is-
adjust,
what I'm-
readjust the,
But what I'm telling you is the other towns are giving that percentage increase in salary this year. So they're gonna be way above what Ocean Ridge is next year if you don't do the same.
but I mean, again, you know, this is a very unique situation that we're in this particular year. It's very unique
Mm-hmm.
for this country in general.
It
We
is.
haven't seen that in
Inflation's
what, in
terrible.
30, 40 years or something. So, based on that, right now, we need to come up with, as a small municipality, with something that is equitable to our employees, at the same time as equitable to the people that are funding this. And I think if we're adjusting their salary properly, so they are not the ones carrying the blunt of this, but at the same time leaving our door open to saying, okay, look, this year, 0% inflation. If we're talking 24, 0% inflation, you know, you're still getting your 5% bonus. You're still getting the 5%. We can adjust it at that point. It gives us an opportunity of doing it without locking us into a position, but they are adjusted to the same level this year as they are with any of the other municipalities. That scenario that you're painting does not come in effect until 24.
No, this is October 1st,
Yes.
October 1st of this year.
If we're
it-
adjusting
It's
5 and
23.
5, we're adjusting 10%. If Palm Beach is giving a 10%
On
with-
October 1st.
on October 1st, we're in the same level.
Yes,
Right.
We're giving 10, they're
Correct.
giving 10.
correct.
Now, what you're saying is that in 24,
You haven't set your budget for 24
hold on,
yet.
hold on, but in 24, Palm Beach would be 10% ahead of us, and we would still have to renegotiate this.
They'd be
I'm
5%,
saying-
they'd be
Ahead of us.
5%.
Exactly, there would be,
Yes.
yes, correct. There would be 5% ahead of us. But at that point, we can then come back and say, you know what? Let's adjust this properly and do it that way.
Again.
But without knowing what the situation is next year, I think it is foolish to go forward and just, you know, move and give a broad 10% increase, which we cannot take back.
You're the one who proposed
I
it.
know, I was just
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
say,
and listen, but what I'm saying is, you're right, in this
Okay.
discussion, you're absolutely
Then it came
right,
through.
because we can't take it back. If we can't take it, and as I said, you know, if next year if it's a negative inflation, I would take it back negative. I would decrease salaries.
So does
I don't
it-
have a
does this
problem with
mean
that.
then
But
we're
if
right
that is
back
not
where
the
we
case,
started?
then this gives us the flexibility of saying 5 and 5, and then the following year, we're gonna see where we stand.
which is basically how we began the conversation, right? Stipend plus 5%
But the stipend would be percentage
versus a flat
Flat.
versus a flat fee across the board for everybody at the same level.
Does that take care of the two special cases, the lieutenant and the police chief? Or is that now the lieutenant and police chief in addition to that?
They're with all of the employees that we're talking about right now.
Same thing.
I thought in the past, everyone had been adjusted but two people
No.
in the police
I-
department.
9 people have not been adjusted right now.
Those two include with the staff that have not been adjusted.
But
A collective
we're
of
not
9,
talking those
correct?
9 people now, we're talking to everybody. We're talking the entire town staff.
No,
No.
we're not.
You're just talking the ones you've checkmarked?
Yeah.
It only,
9, the 9.
It's just the 9 people. I told you PBA contract, they're set by PBA contract. Dispatchers were already given a 7,500 increase. We're just talking about the lieutenant, the chief, and then all the admin staff and building department and public works.
And to be clear, that the dispatch was heavily underpaid.
Correct.
Right,
In order to adjust them, that's why
Right.
we had the 75
right,
adjustment.
which then makes you look at everybody else, and when you're looking at these salary
Right,
surveys, saying the
which now
same, we're seeing the same thing.
Exactly, now
Right.
we need to look at that separate,
Right.
but that's a separate issue.
So it's just the 9. We're back to Martin saying 5% instead of a numbered stipend. You're saying 5% of set
percentage.
salary for coming up, right? You doing the math here? 5, 5% of the set salary coming up, plus the 5% cost of living, whatever we want to call it.
Whatever you wanna call it.
How do we come out there versus, now we have three of, take away the 10%, you took the 10% away. Take that out.
Listen,
Okay,
this
that's
is a
fine.
discussion,
No,
and,
no, I
and
like it.
and I admit that, you know, if
Right.
this doesn't make as much sense, then yes,
Yeah,
then
that's why I said,
perfect.
take the 10 away and
I
let's see
have
what
no
we got
problem
with
saying
those
I'm
two.
wrong.
No.
Okay,
loving it.
so I'm not doing everybody's dirty work again.
Well, you don't
But
have- actually-
I will do on one level. So I'm using the town manager, and I think we're at the point
Oh,
where
we're right there.
we're probably splitting hairs.
Yeah,
If we take the 5% increase, so you've got a base of 139.5, so you've already given the 5%, and then you do another 5% COLA, stipend, you can call it whatever you
Right.
want, it would take it to 146.08. Versus if you do the 10% flat on the actual, it's 145.750. So it's actually it's actually more beneficial to the employees than a flat 10%. And for most employees, it's gonna be within $50, the 5%
Of the
versus the
75.
7,500.
that's my question.
And if
I don't
we
think so.
expand upon that, let's
There-
expand
there
upon
can't
that
be a-
discussion for a
Get out your
second.
calculator.
I think,
Let's expand
Wait, wait,
upon
wait.
that discussion
Go ahead.
just for a
Okay,
second, Mayor,
go
if
ahead.
you will.
Please.
And that number that you just said is still under all of the other town comparisons for a town manager's salary. So
Right.
you're still under market.
Right. But that, what we were talking about, the 75, which was the suggestion, the 75, and then stick with that 5% was the original suggestion, which brings us up, and then each year we see what's going on. I mean, it brings us higher, which is what, and the numbers came from the right,
So-
from y'all. So,
I don't understand, why are we doing calculations on the town manager when the town manager's
just
not
using
one
the
of the
number.
nine?
I'm
Right.
just
That's the
just
biggest-
using the number.
Right, but
You got a calculator?
I did the town
Okay.
clerk, I did the
Okay,
town
so how are
clerk.
we looking?
So here, deputy town clerk, right?
There you go.
Deputy town clerk, if we're doing a 10% based on the 48 of the 22, 48,500, 10% comes to 53,350.
Right.
If we're doing the 5% increase plus the 75, it's gonna come to 58,425. Right there's a
Right.
$5,000 difference.
Yeah, but you're
And
not,
so somebody that, a position that is, you know, not a town manager position, which earns 3 times the salary of the deputy town clerk, gets the same bump and increase, that to me it just doesn't make sense.
I think everyone's kind of agreed with that.
That's why you wanted
It's simple to
10%.
figure this out, ready? If you look at the green, column, Town of Ocean Ridge, 2022, 2023. The 5%, you just subtract column, 1 from column 2, okay? And that tells you what 5% is. So when you have that number, so they get the 5% bump, and it goes to exactly what the 2023 numbers are in green here. Then you just take what that subtraction shows, and that would be the 5% stipend, so to speak.
Correct. So I went ahead against my better judgment and did deputy town clerk just to round out the conversation. You are correct, Martin, that, if we use the 5% increase, you're at 50,925. If you add then just a flat 7,500, you're at 58,425. If you add a 10% based on the 48.5, you're at 53,350. But if you do the 5% increase and then an additional 5% COLA, you're at 53,471. So,
With less pain to the town in the future.
correct. So what's happening is by not giving the flat 7,500 fee, the smaller your salary, the smaller your increase. I mean, right?
Right,
Just-
of
So
course.
the
Sure.
question
Of
is,
course, it's
is
percentage.
that increase enough to keep our staff motivated and retained?
Which now the question is that position, if we're going to 53,350.
There you go.
Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves in the second round of discussions is 53,350 for the deputy town clerk in an appropriate salary? And if the comparison to everything is that it is not, then maybe we need to increase that position, period.
Correct.
Well, that's kind of where we are, right?
That's what we were
That's what we're
talking
trying to
about.
do,
Well,
that's what the whole concept
Except
is, is
we,
to bring it up to normal.
we've added a part-time desk person, so we've added yet another employee, and there's only one other deputy town clerk out of all these towns in this chart. So.
How much
let-
she make?
71, but she's in Gulf Street, and for all we
Yeah.
know, she's been there 30, 40
She
years.
has.
She has, well, there you go, that answers that question.
Still.
So,
No, the deputy clerk
Oh,
hasn't
it
been there
isn't?
that long,
I
no,
would-
like 6
Kelly,
years, I think.
Kelly, help us out here.
6 years, I think?
Okay.
Yeah.
it's Gulf Street. And Juno Beach, Lake Clark
Most people-
Shores, and Highland Beach population are all over 3,500, so that's apples and oranges once again. So, I think the 5% COLA, in other words, the 5% increase, and we're only talking, Tracy, I keep saying this to you, you're only talking these 9 people.
Yeah.
See, well, you're
And
leaving-
not the town, you're definitely not talking about the town manager, because you're gonna
Right.
negotiate a salary for
Exactly.
your new town
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
manager, but.
Okay, and we've left out dispatch and dispatch clerk, and the only curious
Yeah,
one is
they're already
part-time
done.
inspector.
They're already,
Right,
no.
you're right, they-
So that-
Dispatchers are already done.
The inspector?
Okay, so.
All we're talking about is these positions here?
9.
Right.
No, no, no,
These
no,
9 posi-
no,
There's more,
That's what-
right?
not these. You're not talking about your dispatchers, so it's not these.
Here,
Well, the dispatchers are taken care
here,
of.
let's go
Yes.
through. You're talking town clerk, deputy town clerk,
Mm-hmm.
treasury/HR administrator,
Yep,
building official, building clerk,
Mm-hmm.
inspector part-time, which we should discuss, public
Public
works
works.
supervisor, police chief,
And
police
lieutenant.
lieutenant.
Yes.
That's it.
yep.
So the reception admin,
That's a new position.
That's a new
that's a whole new position.
It's
Okay, so,
part-time.
hold on.
I don't think the part-time positions need to be included in our
Correct.
discussions
All right, that's-
right now.
It's new hire as well.
All right, so we're taking the 22 inspector part-time out too, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and the
All right, so,
receptionist.
and I'm gonna take the town manager out too, because
Yep.
that's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
whole different
That's
thing.
gonna be another
All right,
negotiation.
so we got 75,
You gonna do all that
40.
subtraction?
I wanna get to
It's gonna take a
an
while.
average.
To-
Actually, I think where we
87.
began here, the 75 plus the 5%, which is moving up, because again, Martin's point is, if by chance we didn't have that person, what would we be paying competitively to replace what they do? I don't care how small the town is, how big the town is, we know what they do out there.
I wish I kept it in a spreadsheet. So basically, if you do
That's where I like it.
7,500 by times the people that Paz just suggested,
Right.
that's a $60,000 hit to our budget,
Okay,
flat,
right?
okay? Let's start to think about it in
Okay.
big picture, right? Then if you wanna add something on top of that, which is the 5%, I haven't calculated that.
You'd have to do, we can actually take a break and spend 5 minutes. You'd have to subtract 2022 from 2023, and that would give you that number. But you'd have
No,
to
it's
do it for
easy to
each
do. I
individual.
just-
There's no aggregate.
I don't have my laptop with me, so.
Well, we could do it.
I think philosophically, we just need to first decide, are we doing 10% and/or are we splitting it 5 and 5?
Well, I'd
And if
say,
it's not 5 and 5, is it 5 and 75?
Right, there's 3 options here that have
Three
been brought up. The gentleman that brought up the first option has rescinded that one, so we could take that one totally, we could take that one out of the mix to make it a little more simple. And I'm going with the fact that you thought this through and you're next to him doing the same thing. Nobody had a problem with
82.
taking that out of the mix. So now we're down to 5 and 5 or 75 plus 5, correct?
I'm a negative on 75.
I'm a positive.
So, I did a quick calculation, if that helps somebody.
Let's see.
Our average salary between there's 8 positions: town clerk, deputy town clerk, treasurer, building official, building clerk, public works supervisor, chief of police, lieutenant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The total comes to, the average salary between all of these 8 positions is 82,894. 5% of that is 4,144. Right? So the 7,500 as a figure disproportionately penalizes those in town that have high-ranking positions such as chief of police and such as the town manager, and the building official, and incentivizes, not incentivizes because it's not an incentive.
No.
It's the wrong word. I apologize.
So at what point is that
The-
scale tip?
Right.
So.
Is it anybody at 100,000 more in salary should be offered the 5% because it's more
It's
advantageous?
when your inflation is 10%, the person
No, I'm
that,
saying the 5 and 5. You're saying that upper ranking
no,
earners.
it should be based, my point to this is it should be based on percentage, it shouldn't be based on a flat 7,500.
He doesn't like the stipend.
Okay,
I would like to see a stipend at a percentage rate, not at a flat rate.
okay, I agree with that. Cause?
Yeah, I'm just gonna take a break and do some math, but yes, I agree.
Okay, well then, I mean, I'm just trying to give us some
Right,
base
right, right. No, no.
assumptions. We can, you know,
So you already have
gotta be here eating
5%,
pizza.
you already have the
5:45.
5% that, is built into your budget. You've already got
Correct.
that in there.
Correct.
Now, are you gonna talk about doing an inflation percentage on top of that? Is that what you're doing?
think that's
Just
what
like
you're
the other
saying,
tons
right?
are doing?
With whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah.
He was
That's
saying
the
5%
5% to
versus.
So a
bring it to
COLA,
a-
so you're really talking about giving a COLA at this point?
A COLA
So-
based on percentage
Okay,
to salary.
cause your 5%'s already built in, so
Correct.
now just
Right.
talk about what is your COLA gonna be?
And the
that
five
will make
percent
it
that is
simple.
built in, that's not is that a fixed number that we have every year? Is that,
That's
Right.
typically what you've had over
What we
many,
have
many
had.
years.
but we can adjust that too
Correct.
down the road
Yep.
if we need
Correct.
to.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Every year you talk about it, so.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it sounds to me like I'm the only one looking at the positive 75 plus 5%. So I'm not falling on my sword for that.
So just talk about a COLA percentage, I
Right.
think, because you
So
can all
exactly
agree
right.
on that.
Right.
I'm not comfortable with 10%. I'd be comfortable with 6.
As a total?
No,
No.
5 merit, 6 COLA.
So you would be at 11%.
So it'd be 11%.
Correct. So let's take one and do
So
some math.
if my math is right, the 5% across those 9 people is gonna be 37,500.
That's already built in your budget, though.
Right.
Correct.
So that would mean the stipend would be 37,500.
We're not talking about a stipend, as far as I know. We're not
No,
talking
everybody-
stipend,
you
we're
guys
talking
need to be
COLA
out.
now.
The 5% is not going to be a part of the salary, so we're gonna call it something, the additional 5%.
I thought it was
It
gonna be
is.
part of
That's what's-
salary.
yeah.
No, no,
Oh.
no, no, we're doing 5 plus 5.
I thought we were doing 5 and 5.
Right, but
That's
we're
why-
not doing.
that's why I was
Five and
willing-
6, whatever we wanna, but yes.
But the big difference is, it's not
Permanent.
going for it and permanent.
Right,
That's
so
why
we
I wa-
have to call
That's why I
that
was
something.
comfortable going a little bit further on the COLA percentage, as long as it was not a permanent piece.
My only thing is, and this, history proves us right pretty much every time, is that prices never go down. Prices will always stay at the level, they might flatten out, and they might, we might have a zero inflation, or we might have a very low inflation at one point, hopefully, to even out the 10% that was, 9%, 9.1% that we're seeing right now. At the end of the day, we will have to talk about doing that adjustment, that 5% COLA adjustment that we're doing right now. We might have to look at that the following year again, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we will be 5% behind the ball, and this is what Tracy was saying earlier, when all the other towns are doing 10% increases, and we're doing
All the towns aren't doing
5 and 5.
10% increases. Let's just, I mean,
whichever way we're gonna, it's just something that's gonna come back.
So to keep it simple, do you want to keep your 5% as budgeted?
Yes.
And then for the current fiscal year that we're in right now, give a stipend? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, that's where we started.
No, she's talking out of
right now.
2022,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not 2023,
Right, right, right.
which would help people
So give
now
your
and be
stipend,
painless
right.
to the residents. Uh-huh.
What do you think?
Yeah, right, exactly.
we will be having this exact same discussion in exactly 1 year.
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And we will know whether, and it gives us enough room to be flexible before we do our final budget.
And if I did my math correctly, we're talking 37,500.
For 9 people?
Yep.
Okay, so what do you want your stipend to be then?
5%.
I think that's it's low. If we're talking, I'm still trying to go
Well,
that apples to apples.
technically, if inflation is 9.1, I should be saying 4%.
I
Four
still-
point,
I think it's low.
4.1%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's low. I still am looking at what it costs to hire somebody
Listen, what,
in another
this-
town.
and I get that, but the stipend, if we're separating the discussion, the stipend is in order to adjust for our employees to not have a negative impact on their salary, purchasing power,
Yeah.
right? So, in order to do that, and if we're doing it, specifically if we're doing it this fiscal, in the fiscal year that we're in, this is specific to the rate of inflation. So if we're doing it right now, then that would be in order to offset that. That has nothing to do with if we're
Right.
compatible in our jobs or not,
Right.
in our base pay. That would be one thing. And then we can discuss
So what are you
the
thinking?
rest of it down the road. Yeah, I'm for it, yes. I think, everybody's hurting and
Right.
our town employees
Number-wise,
need
what
to
do you
be, it needs, well, technically 4.1%.
Yeah.
Also to make it clear that this has to do with the rate of inflation, and I'm fine with 5% if you wanna up it to 5%.
You were 6
That's-
a minute ago. What happened?
That's because it's the correct, by numbers, Steve is
Yeah,
correct. It's 9.1%. My pet peeve with this whole thing is we need to adjust for the rate of inflation. Our employees cannot take a cut in their pay based on rate of inflation. So that's the 9.1% number. They have 5, they're getting an additional 4.1 to offset it. I'm fine with saying 5% as a flat.
The only negative is, of course, when you hand out this what are we gonna call it? Stipend? Are we all
Yeah.
okay with that? When we hand this stipend out, is that one check?
It is one check.
Yeah.
So that's the only danger you run. We're saying thank you to the town staff. We understand you're facing inflation. We understand you're having tough times. So we're giving you these thousands of dollars right now. And then they go out a month later and find another job. That's the only danger we run.
And that's a danger.
I-
Can I comment on that?
Please, please.
First and foremost, to be completely honest with you, I don't think you're gonna have that happen. Staff wants to be here, that's why they
That's
still
what-
work here.
Right.
Obviously, financial benefits are concerns for all employees. If they were to leave, that position's gonna be vacant for 60 to 90 days before it's refilled, making up all the money that you just spent on giving that person a bonus. You've just saved it by not paying an employee.
So we should
So
encourage
there's
them.
really no,
but
I
we're
mean, there
running-
is the
but-
potential
but
that
we're-
you lose the employee,
The
but there is no
problem-
financial loss.
The problem, Richard, is that what we're doing is we're running the rest of the employees, we're basically letting other employees do the additional work that one employee is not doing anymore because they quit. And that is something that concerns me a lot.
I understand that, but
You know,
we deal
we
with
might
it.
be saving
Every day.
on paper
Yeah.
money, but we're really running everybody else dry. And that, I don't want this to go to that point. I don't want anybody to quit. I want to make sure that they all understand that they're valued, we value them, we want to pay them a proper salary. This is simply saying, hey, this year, everybody's hard, everybody has to pay extra for it, here's the extra money to make up for that. And hopefully that is well enough received with everybody in the office that they understand that, this, it's to make up for something that they're literally spending on. And then we need to look at the salary ranges in itself, but that's a different,
So we're looking at a stipend which is basically 5% of the salary. If we've gone from 60 down to 37, so we're looking at a 3,000-ish, right? Across the board, is that almost 3,000-ish by what I'm
Well, it's
looking here?
a percent.
Right, per person, but I'm looking, I'm
it's
pulling a
four
couple.
thousand 144 on average per employee, on
How about,
average.
we'll start with our lowest for our.
It ranges from 25 to 6,000.
The low one would be 25, okay.
Your average is, it's gonna cost us 82,894 if it's a 5% increase.
I didn't come up with that.
Yeah.
Are you talking,
No, maybe that's my
Yeah.
10%.
I think you're at 10%
I think
there.
Where were you?
84 divided by 2 is 42.
Yeah, that would be
yeah.
40, yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
42.
yeah.
So, let's round it to 40, just for the conversation, so we don't have to keep on remembering numbers. So we're giving $40,000 in next year's budget for 5%.
Yeah, it's
It's-
already
it's-
built
it's
in the
in
budget.
there.
It's there.
So we're
It's
gonna
already
take
there. We're gonna take it.
40,000
Already
now,
there.
and the only question is, which I'm so happy the
I don't
police
want you
chief-
to tell me 40,000, I want you to give me a
Right.
Well,
percentage
you
for
c-
each employee, and
Right.
then I'll take care
Right,
of
Go
it.
to
she's not gonna
5%.
divide
It's
it
gonna
up.
be.
There's no reason for
I'm
you
not
to
gonna
divide
divide
that
it
up.
up,
Heck
I need
no.
a
We're
percentage.
We need a
5%.
percentage.
5% on the
Would-
2023. Right?
No, now, we're talking about the stipend.
No.
Stipend.
Right, I'm trying to keep them,
Yeah, it already says that.
right.
We're not
So
arguing
now
about
on
it.
the stipend,
Correct.
it's gonna be identical 5% number. I mean, you don't have to do the math twice, it's the same bloody number, it's 5%. If you go to a 5% stipend,
Yeah,
or you can go to a 4.1.
So,
Yeah, that's
here-
up to you, whatever you wanna
Okay, so
do.
hold on, here's the only discussion, only difference in the monies, if I'm doing it correctly, is if we do it now, that 5% is on actual what you're making now. If we wait and do it on October 1st, that additional 5% stipend is based on something that will be increased another 5%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand, but I'm doing the subtraction,
Yeah.
2023 minus 2022, so it is the exact number you're talking about. The police chief makes me very happy, that the town employees are happy and would appreciate us doing this. The only other thing we could attend, and I'm not saying to do this, I'm just throwing it out there, you could take it and do 2 stipends. You could say,
I
you get
was-
one August 1st, you get one October 1st.
I was actually in my head, I was just going there.
In your head?
In
not
my
a
head,
huge
yes.
stipend. Why would you
While
break it
you
up?
were saying it, I was going like, wait a second, maybe we should split
But do
this
we
thing.
need to? According to
And
the
do
police
2.5
chief, it
and
sounds like we're
2.5.
okay.
So if you were considering that, maybe a consideration be that any employee who you're compensating for the current year, if that's what you're trying to do, they have to have been employed here for at least the last 9 months. So if you're compensating them for this year, which is what I've been hearing the last few minutes, then does it matter whether they're here after October 1 or not? Because you're compensating them for the year of financial crisis that we're in currently.
That ends September 30th on our
Correct.
budget.
So just food for thought, maybe you apply it only to employees who have been here 6 months, 9 months, or whatnot for any previous compensation that you're making. And then if you're wanting to separate that out for the next year, you do like you said, and do potentially a 6-month stipend and a 9-month stipend, or a 3-month, every 3 month there's a stipend, or something like that moving forward in the next budget year that would then address any concerns that you have for cost of living in that fiscal year.
Okay, so what we want to do first is we want to decide, we're kind of all in the same thing where we're leaving the 5% 2023, correct? Okay?
Yep.
That's. we're
leaving
good
the
there.
5% there.
Now, right, so we're separating, we're kind of going back to stipend world. So, the 75 is getting no traction here.
No.
So we're looking at a percentage, right?
Yep.
You say 4, you say 5. I'd like to say 6. So let's come to, this, got something going in there?
Yeah, I do. It's called protecting my great uncle who's
That's a-
94.
I know, I appreciate that.
Uh,
I can't see your face.
yeah, I'd be, if we're doing it this year because it's not going to have the bump of the end of the year 5% merit increase, I would be more comfortable with 6.
Okay.
I think it's more equitable. I don't know.
That's what I'm
Having an additional 60 days, but less 5%, I mean, we're splitting hairs
Right.
at this point, but.
I
I'm
know,
lost
but
on the 60 days. I mean, don't do it all at once. I don't care, I just threw that out there.
Do it all right.
If you're gonna do it all at once and you're gonna do it in this fiscal year, it's really not gonna be a 5% stipend if they waited another 60 days. If they waited another 60 days, it probably would equate to like a 6.87%.
Yeah, but that'd be next year's budget. Right.
So if we talk stipend, I'm thinking stipend now, okay? That's just where I'm
So
gonna
there's
say
only
that
four,
right
there's
there.
only 4 of us, so it'd be nice to compromise. What do you,
Right, so
what
I'm
number are
thinking
you
four
at?
now.
Are you
I
at
need to-
4.1?
I'm technically at 4.1.
Okay, he's at 4.1, you two are at 6, I'm going to 4.1. So can we meet at 5?
Can I, hold on.
Yeah,
No,
let's hold
I'm sorry, and I hate to do this, but
Take a breath.
let's back this up just a second again. So, this year, if we're given a stipend this year, are we gonna give another stipend in October?
No.
No,
No, so this would be the
Stipend now.
adjustment for,
This will be now adjustment.
Inflation.
Right.
For inflation.
And we're doing it as a
then-
lump, not a split,
And then
right?
Correct.
October
Now,
one,
if we-
you have your 5% salary
Right,
increase,
salary
which is already
increase.
built in.
Exactly, stipend
So-
plus salary.
Right, in other words, right now, well, I don't know how quickly Tracy would issue the money, but right now, somebody's gonna get a 5% chunk of money.
Right.
And then in 2 months from now, am I accurate? When's October
Approximately,
first?
close enough.
They're gonna get the 5%.
They will not get it
Salary
on.
adjusted.
Yes.
Excuse me, hold on one second.
Yeah.
They will not get it on October first.
Oh,
They
it's
will
an
get it on their
annual-
anniversary date.
Anniversary, okay.
Salary adjustment, not,
Okay.
not another stipend, salary adjustment.
Correct.
okay, so then, how many people do we have, that are less than, say, 6 months? Just round figure.
Town clerk.
I know we have one, and I hate to talk to you in front of you, I'd rather talk to you behind your back. No,
Get used to
I'm
that.
kidding.
Ocean Ridge.
Get used to that.
It's really just Kelly at this point because Danielle transferred from
Right,
police
From-
she's
to.
not, she's past 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're splitting hairs.
Yeah,
We didn't
yes,
go
I
down
do
that
too.
path.
and
So what do we agree
and
on?
the salary there was already hopefully adjusted properly, that it reflects
Starting salary.
a starting salary that was appropriate for that position at that time. Given,
It's been agreed to,
Right.
okay.
Right.
thank you.
So,
Okay,
the
so we're
compromise,
good.
the compromise
Okay,
is the
so-
only way we'll go forward. So do you want to compromise?
5%.
5%.
5.5.
I like 5.5, come on, boys.
Now we don't have any. We only have 4 of us.
Come on.
We're at 4, you're at 6. Come on.
I know.
What's the normal person do?
5.5.
5. Go to split it.
Well, actually, 5.1 would be a technical split.
5.05.
No, 5.1. You're at 8.2, we're at 12, that's 10.2.
I'm lost on your 8.2s and 12s.
Now, listen, if we.
Come on, our staff is
Let's, Steve, let's.
Yes.
They're our
okay, so
lifeblood.
Let's think
Let's just
this
make a
through.
decision so we can move on.
Exactly. Let's think this through for a second, because if we're waiting 2 more months, we're gonna pay the 5 on the new salary, which would be more than the 5 that we're paying right now. So let's do 5.5 and really appreciate our employees.
Under duress, because you won't support 5.
We're probably
Okay,
talking less
just so
than
we all
I
get,
know, right?
$5,000.
Exactly.
okay.
Okay, 5.5, stipend, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5.
In this current budget.
Current budget.
The
Yes,
stipend.
right.
And then you're keeping the 5% for your next fiscal
Correct,
year for a
salary
salary
adjustment.
adjustment. Okay.
Okay. We love you. We love you.
So, hang on, we did have one question. The stipend going to the town clerk or not?
That's up to you.
You've been here
Yes.
one day?
I
Yep.
think,
It's our first day.
yeah, I think
She
we
is
should take
already-
that out because
No,
it's
she's already at the very minimum
is it?
of salary range.
Okay. So why not? One person.
Well, she signed
Let's
up
do
for
it.
it.
And you gotta
Yeah,
look at her.
I think that's a little nutty.
Oh.
Actually, I hate to be negative on you, Kelly, but throwing,
But again, if it was at the very bottom of the
throwing
salary.
$4,000 to you on day 1 of your job as a stipend sounds a little nuts. We could have a barbecue. So,
Okay, so Martin, what are you thinking? Now we're back, now we're on this one.
I hate to be the squeaky wheel there, but yeah, I, you know, first day on the job, it doesn't make sense. Sorry.
She won't hold
Still
it.
love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, after probation, we can discuss. That would be, actually, that
We
would
can always
be,
discuss something.
that would be
further.
something that I would be comfortable with.
Talking about it in 6 months.
Probation,
6 months?
Yeah.
Okay,
6
fine.
months.
Good?
We
if-
discuss it in 6 months.
If
Yep.
she's still
good?
with us, if she hasn't quit, if she hasn't,
If she comes back tomorrow. Okay, so 6 months you're good with, Steve?
Christmas,
That you'll bring it
January,
back
whatever.
up. Okay.
All right, we'll add
Yes.
that in there?
I'll put it in the tickler file to bring it up in 6 months.
Okay.
thank you.
And it
Okay.
also
Can
put
we
in the
live with
tickle file the point about next year, that if inflation goes down, et cetera, we're not locked into this 5%
Right,
COLA.
right. Well, we
You're
know
never,
that.
you're never
We
locked
never
into
are.
the
Right.
5%.
I know, but we sort of assume that.
Yeah, no, it's,
Right.
it's always
That's fair.
brought up in your budget cycle.
Just imagine we would have given 75 to everybody. Now we're getting 5%. I'm getting my $100 salary just increased by $5 to 105.
Yeah,
If I
And a
would have given 7,500, that
And
would have been
a
a bonus.
But if only we did what they do.
All right, so we done with this?
Kidding.
Yes, I think we're all on the same page here.
Just so you all know,
Tell me.
I am not taking that stipend. I am leaving Ocean Ridge, so I am
Right.
not taking that stipend. Just to put that on the record, it's not for me.
Understood,
Great.
thank you, understood.
We didn't have you checked off as one of the
Good.
9 anyway.
Yeah,
Good,
I didn't check you on my list either.
good.
All right,
So are we gonna save discussion for salary ranges for another day then?
Yeah,
I kinda
You
feel
wanna
like
do
we
that?
beat.
I think we
horse.
beat this one, yeah.
Yeah.
We could be here forever. So what else do we need to add to this next part of our budget discussion?
Just, if you wanna go with the proposed salary ranges, I need a vote on
Okay.
that. And then we have nothing
I
else
couldn't
to
get out of it.
discuss as far as budget unless you all wanted to take up other topics. Cause we had everything else decided on already.
Okay, so we do need to do salary ranges to move forward.
Yes.
Good try, Christie. All right. Where are you gonna lead us here?
I would recommend, adopting the proposed salary ranges as presented.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That gives you your ranges for hiring employees and for your top outs for employees.
I'm negative on that. Because if you look, if you take Juneau, Lake Clark, and Highland Beach, which all have more than 3,500 people, that's where we're getting these bumps. To take us from, our current max is 100, like town manager, 185. Under the new proposal, it'll be 195. Some of these towns have 4,000 people. We have somewhere around 1,800 people in season.
Remember our discussions before, though, with the towns that are larger, they have other staff
Right.
doing what your town manager does. So your town manager serves as your town manager and your finance director. In a town that has 3,000 people, you have a town manager that does just town manager. They have a finance director.
Right.
I think that we already have a current maximum for a town manager of 185,000. I think that's plenty. And we could go through each of these. Town clerk, I think, we're at 115. That's plenty. Deputy town clerk, I have no idea.
That didn't change. That range stayed the same if you
Okay.
look at from one to the other.
Treasurer,
A lot of them
We're
stayed
great.
the same. There were
Yeah.
only a
We're-
few that went higher.
receptionist, building official, we're in very good shape.
So police chief, one additional 5 on each side. I mean, I like where you're going with this, Steve, is let's look at them maybe individually.
Yep.
Um,
Police chief, we're in good shape. Police lieutenant,
I don't think we're in good shape on the police chief.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
which-
definitely not in good shape on a police chief, I can tell you.
we're shy
Yeah.
10,000.
Yeah,
We're
where?
a small town. Do you feel undercompensated?
That's unfair.
Yeah, that's not the right thing to say, not even in
If you look
jest.
at the comparables, he is undercompensated,
Yeah.
if you look at the comparables.
All right, let's
Yep,
do that.
Yep. Let's see, where's our little population roll here?
Who's calling him that day.
Let's, look at Juneau population.
You are undercompensated.
Yes,
Mhm.
and not just a
My
little bit.
apologies.
It's not just him, yep.
Plus combat pay.
Okay, so I would be open to moving the police chief's minimum maximum.
So who are you against here? Which one don't you like?
Everyone above that I'm against. And I haven't got to police lieutenant yet. I think now that we're discussing the police chief, let's just finalize that discussion.
Are we gonna do it one by one?
Yes.
Comfortable with that.
All right, so.
So I don't,
You don't like the town manager, you think that that's too much?
yeah, all the way down the chart to the police chief, I think we're fine.
I think you're gonna hear tonight from your FCCMA senior advisor that you're gonna have to raise your salaries for your town manager.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I've seen.
Well,
Been doing research all weekend.
yeah, but we have up to
That's,
$185,000.
I agree not to move it. Do you remember, I'm the one that
Right.
said take it to 150, right? Do you remember that? But I'm just saying, based on the research that I did all weekend, it's not, we can say as much as we want,
That's right.
but if we want a quality professional person,
So what are we
Bark
achieving in
up
this
the wrong tree.
discussion? Are we going to do, the
We're looking
right
at
now,
the
the ones that
surveys.
we think need to be upped?
yeah, so tell me who else besides the police?
Police chief, okay, let's go to lieutenant. Where is the comparables? There are none.
You had them in your Pepe salary survey that I had given you at the last budget meeting.
I have no problem raising the police lieutenant then, the range, because we're still within it. Dispatch supervisor, we don't need to discuss, right?
Correct.
And we don't need to discuss discount clerk. So it's the police chief and the police lieutenant that would move to the new ranges.
I think your dispatch, your dispatchers, your dispatch manager, that needs to be looked at as well.
Anybody got any opinions?
I think we're still probably a little low, and we'll hear that tonight on the range for the manager. A 5% increase, I don't think is crazy. Police chief, obviously. Finance director, we're not even looking at that. County clerk, we're current salary, we're in the middle of that range.
So I guess if we're sitting
mean,
here
it's a range,
discussing
remember?
something we're not gonna decide on because we're gonna wait for this guy tonight to tell us that we're wrong, why are we discussing it now?
Well, that's a town manager only. I
Right,
think we can look
right.
at the other things. Mhm.
Okay,
So you wanna go line by line?
we just did.
Town manager, no,
Town manager is gonna be delayed till this
till
evening.
tonight.
Police chief's a yes,
Town clerk is already raised,
right?
where the proposed and current is the same. Deputy town clerk. Basically 5,000 on the low end and 11,000 on the high end, which is a big jump.
Mhm.
So deputy town clerk is, it's within the range.
Yeah, we're fine down to the police chief, we just did this.
So,
Huh?
Talking amongst themselves.
what are we bringing?
We're mumbling enough up
police
here.
chief to?
We're just saying we go to the new proposed minimum maximums.
Right.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
136.3?
No, we're 115 to
And it's a
167.
survey, it's not, it's a low to
See this
high.
piece of paper?
We're not grabbing,
No,
we're not
no,
doing
the little
surveys.
tiny one. That one. See where it says proposed min max? Yeah.
I did find a typo
Uh-oh, where?
on number 8 building clerk, under 2022 current. Maximum is 826,500. Congratulations, Lisa. I believe that's supposed to be 82,650.
On the sheet that you did, Christine,
Yes.
or?
Yes. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so where are we here? Are we basically adopting the salary survey, but we're having issues with the town manager that we'll put aside?
You're not adopting the salary survey is data. What we're looking at is the
Proposed ranges.
proposed
Right.
The ranges.
range.
For new
Right.
hires.
So,
The sheet with the notes on it.
Right.
And one of the
Got
reasons
'em.
that looking at the ranges is important is if we've got some long-term employees, if they're hitting up against the ceiling, right now,
That's right.
our policy is only to increase once they hit that ceiling, a 2% COLA. And based on what we talked about today, 2% doesn't even get you near COLA, so, I think there's, first it's new hires, and I don't anticipate that the lieutenant or chief are going anywhere. But, so that's, it's kind of a perfunctory thing, it's more looking at what this maximum salary range is, to make sure that you're not de-incentivizing some of your key employees that have been here for a very long time.
And then your minimum salaries, are gonna determine who you get for new employees as well.
Right.
How many applicants you get.
Why are you forced to hire people at minimum salaries?
Because that's the salary ranges.
the
I can't,
range.
this is what you set for
No,
me.
no. The
To
minimum.
hire,
Let's say you wanted to hire a deputy town clerk, right?
yeah. I
Right
have
now,
to
currently you-
hire them at minimum.
Why?
because that's the policy
What policy?
of the town of Ocean
Well,
Ridge.
who made this policy?
You don't hire in a range?
You do not hire in a
Well,
range, and
right
that's why
now,
this becomes important, and
we
I've
should
told
stop
you
that
this time and
policy.
time again.
I have never heard
We
this.
hire at the minimum salary. If somebody has, and you'll see the note at the bottom, if somebody has a certification,
Right?
the town manager has discretion to give them 5% over the minimum.
Okay, so how do we scrap this policy?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You put a range in for a salary and you negotiate with the person. So, does anybody,
Would
You
that
can't
throw-
do that for any of your police, cause they're
Yeah,
under
right,
contract.
right, we understand that.
we won't
so-
worry about the police.
Yeah.
So can we do this, let's wait till tonight's meeting maybe, can ask the town attorney if we can just scrap this.
You can
It doesn't
scrap it, it's
exist.
up to you.
It's some
It's up to
policy
you.
that you've been using that we didn't know existed.
This has always
All right,
historically
well, that would
been
be our,
used.
that would be our fault for not
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
that detail, but I'm with you, that's an interesting concept that you have to start at the low, because that kind of, just starting at the low and knowing that you can possibly move up in how many years, you saw what this like pulling teeth to begin with. That's pretty tough. So I like the discretion.
Can I just point something out? So if you have a proposed salary range for the police lieutenant from 90 to 130, and we're increasing from 22 to 23 for the actual lieutenant that we have there, and we're increasing him to 89,250. So we're increasing him to under what he would make if he would quit and then get rehired the next day.
That actually
Could
is
be one
interesting.
of the reasons we're looking at this.
Yeah, cause you look at your current.
Not trying to give him any ideas, but
Yeah, you look at your current minimum, it's 85.
Right, exactly
You'd be
right.
going to 90.
so the minimum should, the current rate should always at least reflect what our minimum range is. Correct?
What is he going to be at next year? Hold on.
He's gonna be at 89,250,
Yeah, 89,250.
so we should bump him
plus
to 7.
another 5.
We should
No,
bump
So-
your lieutenant is going to be at 98,572 next year.
Not according to this sheet.
Yeah, but
He currently makes 92,910.
you're looking at a different one.
Yeah, no, it's what he called,
Oh, okay.
Christine probably
Yeah,
pulled
that's
that.
Christine's,
Yep.
that's Christine's sheet.
All right, so we're all set there.
We've got the real sheets here.
But what are we accomplishing here? So we're not gonna do the town manager, we're down to the police chief and the police lieutenant, we should move categories, or go to the proposed? Guys,
Let's look at. real
I'm
wages
good
in
with
here.
that.
You got it?
our mind's good with that, okay.
I'm good with
Tracy, you got any issues?
that. And that's just the ranges anyway.
Right,
What was your, tell me again, Stephen, what were you saying?
we're gonna scrap this policy of hiring at the minimum, and we're going to bump the police chief and lieutenant spots up to the proposed minimum max. And then town manager, we will decide tonight if we need to bump that up.
Are we, I mean, what Steve's bringing up here is, we're just doing this with your position, Tracy. Your position has a range from 125 to 185, right? So we're bringing people in to basically offer the position, and we're saying we're capping it at 150. So we are actually negotiating over the 125 in the first place.
Yeah, but that's
So
only
why
for
are we
town
not doing?
manager,
I understand,
mean,
but
all
why
the
are we
other-
not doing that with other positions too?
because you just don't.
Because, yes,
Historically,
we
it's
had
always
not.
been, you hire at your minimum salary.
I never,
Yeah,
It's-
that's the way things work, but
All-
it doesn't
Well,
have to be.
it's a common government
Right, right,
practice
right.
to have an established baseline salary
So
with
if
the
our
availability,
baseline's too low,
with the
That's
availability
why we're trying to
to
adjust.
do an increase because of certification, training, experience, education, or
so
other
then we
things
actually
that
have
may
a couple
exist.
options here with either scrap the policy of starting at the bottom or raise the baseline to something reasonable.
scrap the policy. It's a ridiculous
I-
policy.
I would scrap the policy too. And because it gives the town manager the flexibility to actually hire based on market condition,
And a superstar.
based on, abilities.
So,
Your
Experience.
incoming town manager will be very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
before I weigh in, I'd like to ask,
Okay.
Chief, And Tracy, what is the law of unintended consequences of scrapping the policy?
Your
Good question.
salaries could go way up for next year if your new town manager comes in and wants to give employees a higher rate of pay.
Yeah, but we make that
When they
decision.
hire them.
Well,
But
wait a
in-
minute, we
but
have
as
Incoming.
you-
discretion.
But
we have to
Steve,
work.
you're saying you'll make that decision? No, you won't. If you scrap this policy, your
That-
town manager runs the day-to-day operation of the
That's
town.
correct.
They
That's
do the
correct.
hiring.
That's fine. If he or she starts doing crazy
Then,
things.
then it comes down to us, and
Then it
we're
comes
gonna.
down to you. Yes.
Right, because we make the final decision on
But
this.
That's right.
but as an HR policy, forget about, would you feel comfortable, I know you're leaving, but if you were continuing as our town manager, would you feel comfortable with that change in policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good question.
Chief,
No,
and why?
I think that you need to, if you want to give the town manager more flexibility to negotiate starting salaries, you put a maximum percentage of increase that the town manager can go above and beyond the basic rate of pay.
You mean the current?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Current
And that
minimum.
way you say, okay, you
Alright,
have the
that's a good
flexibility to go
option.
up to 10%. That's it.
Which is
without-
currently what we do. Currently, it's, you give me the ability to go up 5%.
Okay.
So we do 5%
Above the
currently. If
base.
you gave 10, it would give flexibility, but it would also keep it from getting carried away without you realizing it or knowing it until it was too late.
So if we kept the minimum
That's a very
at
good
125 and only allowed the ability to go up 8%, say, you know,
10.
right? Okay, so 10%, so then that turns us into like 140-ish.
And by virtue, the town manager's position doesn't apply anyways because
Right,
the town
she's
manager doesn't
not
have the
making that
flexibility to
decision.
do that.
That's
Exactly right,
negotiated.
and that's the bigger one.
Yep.
It would really only apply to every other
Everybody
position,
else.
But
including
if
the
we have a
police chief.
town manager we don't trust to hire somebody at a salary, why would we keep that town manager?
It's,
Not a
it's,
trust
talking
thing.
trust.
yeah, it's not about trust,
It's
it's
a
about,
policy thing, because once you make a sweeping policy change, I always find there's some laws of unintended consequences, and none of us are HR managers, so, I mean, I just don't wanna make it on the fly and
It's a
have
little
something to
open,
come back.
it's a
with.
little bit of an
agree with
open
that.
policy
And-
there, so I
yes.
understand where you're coming from, and that's a very good point. Is instead of just open, up to you to decide wherever you want to go to the top of it. So that's an interesting way of keeping a cover
So-
on that, so to
So
speak.
if we're putting a 10% cap on it and saying you can negotiate up to 10% above the minimum salary range.
Without getting
if-
permission
wi-
from the
Right.
Without,
commission.
without
Discretion.
coming in front of the commission. And then you can also come in front of the commission and
Right,
I think
based
that's
on-
very reasonable. It's
do too.
also flexibility. It's not about trust, it's about having a standard practice that
Exactly
is
right.
then consistently the same across the
Fine.
platform.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
yes.
Would you wanna increase that 10%, Steve, to something higher?
Yes,
What would that be?
let's see. Let's do some math here.
I've seen cities go as high as 25%.
I wouldn't go that crazy.
Just to give you, that's the highest number I've seen.
I think the whole,
I'm not a favor of it, obviously, but I have seen it go as high as 25%.
Okay,
I mean,
so
at that
higher
point,
than
you're-
10, less than 25
you're
is what we're
close into
thinking?
some of those ranges here.
20%?
You're close.
20%
It's
too
either
much?
15 or 20, what do you guys think?
Are we going to, but again, are we sticking with this minimum salary range? If we're sticking with the 125 versus
Right.
bringing up the proposed minimum to 135.
We're not
then that-
deciding
Well, at
that
that
till
point, we don't
tonight.
Right,
have to do
exactly.
that anymore. We don't, see, this is one of the things, we don't, at this point, we don't
We're just
we
using
don't
that
really
number.
constantly have to look at our minimum ranges because that is where the town manager has to set
We'll have
their
flexibility.
salary base.
Tracy,
We can
what flex,
actually-
how much, what percentage flexibility do you think you need?
I think 10% is probably gonna be fine. If I'm looking at these minimum salaries
Right.
here,
Proposed minimum or
no,
current?
I'm looking at current minimum.
Okay,
I think if you
They're all within 5%.
gave me flexibility 10%, that we could probably be comfortable with that.
By the way, we can go higher than 10% by
just
coming
by
to the
coming to the
commission.
commission.
So, but just to stop the horseplay, 5% on any of these salaries, we're talking $2,500, $3,500. Why don't we just say 15% and
I'll
call
go
it
to
a day?
15.
Okay.
Good.
The treasurer. is the
Okay, so I'll change
172.
the number 5% to 15.
Everybody agreeable on
Yep.
that? Does that sound good
Yes.
to you?
Yeah. Well, I gotta
Christine, you
change
said
the verbiage
15,
in
right?
note one, because it's not based on certification, it'll be based on market and certification.
But, thanks
But-
for pointing that out. I mean, I was under the impression that you were. I
Yeah,
did not know.
we were all under that.
That the town manager was managing, and it wasn't restricted by
So
this.
did you
Yeah.
still also wanna change the lieutenant in chief, up to the proposed rates?
I'm a
or-
yes
I
on
mean,
that.
yes.
I'm a
okay.
yes.
Yes.
Can I also ask that you consider the dispatch position only because we adjusted that salary several months ago to bring us to a base starting salary of 50,000? If we kept the current, we would be at the previous starting salary, which is not what we're utilizing.
Right,
Exactly.
which is what I mentioned
So we're already
before.
doing
Right, you
it.
did say that,
Yes.
right. So
We're already practicing the proposed.
Right. So that has
Correct,
to-
on that position, yes.
Okay, and what else we have? Dispatch supervisor, we have you guys. Public Works, we've made a change there.
No.
61 to
No, we
68.
No, we left
didn't, we
alone.
just, Billy got.
A promotion.
Promotion to Public Works Supervisor, we didn't change the range or anything like that.
So we're good.
61 to 60, well, 61, 68 would be the new proposed survey, but that still falls within the line of the old one with flexibility, right, which is where you're going with that. 47, oh, I like how Lisa makes 826. 90. Do you go down the line, Martin, you good with all of these?
I'm good
Staying?
with it,
Yep.
yeah. I'm good with it.
I actually like the new proposed minimums, but I'm getting pushback, so you're staying on this? You're good here except for the
Yep.
police and the dispatch, correct?
Police Lieutenant Dispatch.
Right. All right. So there's your direction there.
So 3.
And the dispatch is including the dispatch supervisor?
No, no,
No,
no.
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 Just
No,
dispatch?
yeah, just-
No, dispatch supervisor, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
that as well?
Dispatcher clerk
thought-
and dispatch
Yeah, because I
manager.
think the dispatch supervisor was underpaid.
What was the
Yes.
jump up there? Okay, so that's
It was the same,
underpaid.
it was 7,500.
Okay, so absolutely,
Yep.
that's not even a question there, we have to.
Push-
We don't have dispatch clerk on our list, do we?
Yeah, way down
Yes,
bottom,
you
way down bottom.
Number 4.
Dispatcher clerk is number
Yeah,
4, dispatch manager is number 13.
Oh, I was looking at the
Dispatch.
proposed and current salary
Yeah.
ranges. I don't see that.
All righty there.
On this one, Kristen.
Oh, is this the one you pointed out there was a math error?
Yeah.
Number 4, number
Di-
13.
Dispatch supervisor?
No, it was.
Well, look
Lisa.
at dispatch supervisor, that can't be right. Because 5 times 9 is 4,500, not 100 and not 15,000. See the jump,
Oh, there it is.
Christine?
You want
Yeah.
to-
I'm looking at the salary ranges.
Yeah, she's looking
that are-
at the,
Because that's. those
I'm
are
just
the
looking, at if
proposed.
we use this again, look at dispatch
he's
supervisor.
looking at yours.
Okay, which one?
Dispatch supervisor is increased by 20%, not 5%. It's just you hit some wrong button, that's all.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Down at the
So
bottom.
the 8703?
That's accurate, and then the 103 would not be accurate,
Okay.
because there's no way 5 times 87 equals 103,000.
All right.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So there's our salary survey world done.
Okay, so based on these changes, you'll get your final budget presented to you at the next meeting for your public hearing,
Right.
September 6th.
I just had one question, if everybody's comfortable to move on.
Question
Something
away.
besides health.
Can I just, we're finished with the budget, right?
No, I have one
She
more
has a
Oh,
question.
budget question,
Yeah,
okay.
I was in his way. He could
Yeah.
not see you.
Remind me what, because somebody asked me, what is the Harbor Drive North $250,000 expenditure?
The
So
flooding.
that's the drainage project that Lisa Trepepi presented to you?
But it's not seawall.
No,
No.
No, no,
it's a
that's
drainage
Hudson.
project.
And is this drainage project contingent upon us getting easements?
Yes,
From whom?
we already have one and we're working on the second one. The, homeowners between 62 and 66 Harbor Drive North. There's consistent flooding on Harbor Drive
Mhm.
North near the cul-de-sac area.
And where would these outfalls go to?
Into the intercoastal.
We don't ask that question.
I didn't think
Which
that that
needs,
was,
which needs pre-treatment. It has to
Yeah.
go
Right.
through South Florida Water Management District, and that's why the increased cost. So you have to have the proper systems
so
for
what,
pre-treatment.
so what happens if we don't get both
Easements.
homeowners to agree to the easement?
Then you can't build anything.
Okay.
Saving
And then
two
they
hundred and
continue to flood.
$50,000 and they will have to vacuum their cars with a shop
That's
vac
right.
every now and
The
then.
flooding continues.
Yep.
As long as you're bringing up flooding, Christine, we decided to hold off on Hudson, right? Okay,
Yes.
good.
And then there was two more pieces of information that I think we needed to clarify at the budget meeting. And I don't want to,
Go ahead.
Please,
in reference to the generator purchase for Town Hall,
right?
I wanted to bring to your attention that the prices are continuing to increase, and if the budget obviously doesn't get approved October 1, then we wouldn't obviously be able to make the purchase then either. But if we purchase now, we can lock in pricing for the generator, and it's not anything more than a commitment to purchase.
Great.
Doesn't
Alright.
mean that
Do
we
it.
actually
I
have to
think
proceed with it, but
we
at
were
least we
all in
could get the
favor.
process started. And then the same goes with the dispatch furniture and project that we were talking about in dispatch,
Right.
the actual center.
So you have a commitment to purchase and we pull it, and then October 1, you'll actually purchase
You
it.
expend.
Correct.
Right.
This gives us the ability to
Right.
get the timeline expedited, and it also locks in the
Yeah.
pricing
On the
now
record, we
without it
committed. We
continuing
were
to
all in.
increase.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were all in.
Is there anything else? Any duct valves or, I mean, cause we've
There's-
got tons of
Anything else
stuff
that
in
could-
capital improvement projects.
Yeah, anything else that needs that actual
Yeah, we
commitment to
can, I
purchase
mean,
ahead?
yeah, and you can put it on the record that you have a commitment to setting this as your budget, for the projects that we're budgeting for. And we can get staff moving toward working on those now. so
Right,
that the
Cause
Cause
you
you've
got
got,
any
we've
pushback?
got AC units, right, that we approved?
Have you done an AC at your house recently?
No.
Oh, insane.
And I mean, obviously, we're just continuing to see all the prices continue to
Right.
increase. It's the only way we could think of to maybe help keep those costs
Whatever
down
we
and
can do
still
to
get
go
the
ahead of the
process
game.
started.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So why don't we just give a blanket permission on capital expenditures, commit to purchase, and it'll be actually purchased after October 1 in the 23 budget?
Yeah. we've got-
Because there has been no back and forth on these. We've all been,
Right, you've all had
Yeah.
an
yeah,
agreement
and
to
we've
move
all
forward.
been through them numerous times and we're all in agreement.
I mean, we've
So if
got-
that can help save us some money in the long run,
Yeah, we've got pump stations, we've got
Yeah.
valve replacements,
Oh, we got lots.
AC units.
yeah. If that helps us in any way,
All-terrain
shape or form,
vehicle.
please, proactive.
I mean, where are we at with the cars?
So unfortunately, our car situation continues to be what everybody else is dealing with. Our cars are built and we have VIN numbers, but they don't run because they have no microchips.
Right.
Oh.
So they're sitting in Chicago at a rail station waiting to have microchips arrive. We've been given a timeline of anywhere from the next 7 days to the next 6 months.
Ah, yeah.
So our car budget, I've mentioned this to each one of you separately, I believe. Pardon me if I haven't, but I thought I had. Our budget for vehicle repairs and maintenance is already about $5,000 or $6,000 over what it was expected to be this year because of all of the delays that we've been dealing with the car situation. And I've got one more at the Ford dealership with a $2,000 price tag just on that one car. So we're gonna obviously,
Yeah.
just continue to try to keep what we can alive until our cars are here. But the only alternative is to go to a pickup truck, which is quite a bit more expensive and
Right.
requires different type of equipment.
And it's
That's the
much
only
more
vehicles in
to-
stock,
much more to run.
so.
Pickup
go with
truck is gonna cost you in the long.
Yeah, anybody know any motorcycles?
I have police motorcycles, actually.
Electroglide. But we know that they're coming. We're all reading the same
And the
newspapers
prices
with
are
the
locked in,
microchips.
correct? Those prices
Yes,
are
the
already
prices
locked in.
that we've already ordered are locked in.
All right.
So we're just waiting like everybody else in the
shock.
country.
Correct.
Okay.
But this could be one of those, capital expenditures that you
Right.
have to do a carryover on, just
Exactly.
because we're still waiting for
Yes.
the items.
Understood.
Yeah.
All right, any other direction we need here on Budget World? All right, so now I believe we will open the floor to public comment. All right,
There's a lot of
we're
chitter
done.
chatter.
Yeah, I did hear
Where's the
that,
chitter
didn't you?
chatter?
Okay, so everybody's good? We're all done, nothing to add? Ronnie's gone. Okay, people. Meeting adjourned at what, 3:40? Have at it.